You're watching the News Press Now Sports Special, Date with Destiny, Road to New Orleans. Sponsored by Mosaic Life Care and Save On Furniture Mart.
Hello, and thank you for watching News Press Now's training camp special, Date with Destiny, Road to New Orleans. I'm Jacob Michael.
And I'm Calvin Silvers.
The Kansas City Chiefs are set to return to Missouri Western for training camp as part of a long-standing partnership between the team and university. But 2024 could be the last time we see the Chiefs come to St. Joseph.
This year marks the final year of the agreement between the Chiefs and Missouri Western to bring the back-to-back Super Bowl champions to St. Joseph for one more summer of Chiefs camp.
At this moment, there's no word on whether the university and the Chiefs are coming close to reaching a new agreement. In a story published by News Press Now in July of 2023, Missouri Western President Elizabeth Kennedy said the two sides would have discussions in March. Still no agreement has been made, but Kennedy said in that article published by our own Chris Fortune that she was optimistic.
There will be 19 practices for this training camp that will begin July 21st and will end on August 15th. The majority of those will be open to the public, except those on July 22nd and August 7th, which are designated for season ticket holders. While most of the practices have a free entry,
there are also 3 dates with special events that have a $5 admission fee. Those dates include Opening Day on July 21st, Family Fun Day on July 27th, and the August 4th practice. For more details, visit newspressnow.com. And if you plan on attending training camp, tickets must be reserved ahead of time, even for practices that are free of charge. Attendance is limited at daily sessions to ensure the best experience for fans.
That's right. You can reserve up to 6 tickets, up to 3 practices, and you can find more information by the URL on your screen. If you're wondering what the layout of training camp is going to look like this year, we have a map for you to check out.
The Mosaic training fields are located off to the north of Spratt Memorial Stadium, where you can find the Training Camp Kid Zone. To take a closer look at the map, visit chiefs.com/training camp.
And as we know, putting training camp together is no easy task, and News Press Now's Kyle Schmidt talked to personnel on campus to see how they put it all together.
Well, there is a lot that goes into the campus to get this ready for Chiefs as well as the visitors for training camp. The teamwork between the Chiefs and the university is crucial to making this training camp a success.
Missouri Western staff begin preparing for training camp at the beginning of the year. Mike Halloran, Associate Director of Athletics and Facility Operations, breaks down the timeline.
We start meeting as a campus community, going through everything from dining to security to IT to grounds.
Going on year 14, this training camp runs like a well-oiled machine. The expectations are known before the Chiefs arrive. Halloran says he understands Andy Reid's attention to detail at camp.
He wants it a certain way. He wants it timed to the minute. He wants everything to be right. And as an operations guy, I appreciate that.
Something fans will notice when arriving to training camp will be this new building. This will be the team merchandise spot.
Assistant Vice President of Facilities Brian Atkins says the idea has been kicked around for a few years.
This year we just decided it was time, and we had some funding through the state, that it was time to put something a little bit more permanent down there. So it definitely will be more fan-friendly.
The 2 practice fields outside are left to the Chiefs for grounds work.
We do assist them periodically when needed to do things on the field, but they take care of that. So you're having the same group of folks that would be working on Arrowhead Stadium, working on these fields during camp.
The teamwork and trust with one another, along with the respect the Chiefs show, is a huge reason the camp consistently runs successfully. Reporting for News Press Now, I'm Kyle Schmidt.
Now, Jake, a question I hear being asked around town is, what are some items that you can't bring to training camp?
That's a great question, Calvin. Let's take a look at some of the things that you cannot bring to training camp. Glass, metal, plastic thermos, cups, bottles or flasks are prohibited, along with coolers of any size or type, and alcohol of any kind is prohibited. For a full list of items, go to the website on your screen.
All right, and now that we know what we can't bring, what can we bring into training camp, Jake?
Well, fans are encouraged not to bring any type of bag into training camp, but for fans that do need to bring a bag, they are asked to follow the NFL's clear bag policy. Here's a look at the type of bags you can bring in. Bags that are clear plastic, vinyl, or PVC, 1-gallon clear plastic freezer bags, small clutch bags. An exception will be made for medically necessary items after officials inspect it.
And next on News Press Now's Training Camp Special, the city of St. Joseph will celebrate training camp with a red rally downtown. After the break, find out when, where, and what to expect.
You're watching News Press Now's training camp special, Date with Destiny, Road to New Orleans. Well, the Chiefs received their Super Bowl 58 championship rings in a private ceremony at the Nelson Atkins Museum of the Art over the summer.
This was the team's third Super Bowl in 5 years. The Chiefs became the NFL's first repeat champion since the New England Patriots back in 2005. If Kansas City wins it all this year, they would become the first franchise in NFL history to earn 3 straight Super Bowl rings. And that meant the Super Bowl champions visited the White House this summer to celebrate their victory.
It was a return visit to the South Lawn for the Chiefs. President Biden praised them for their dedication and perseverance and said the players are good people, just like the people of the United States.
Last year I talked about how after winning the Super Bowl, many of these players come up to Coach Reid and ask what they could do to be better. Even at the peak of their success, they were looking for ways to work harder, to dig deeper, to improve. Everyone watching, especially our children, that's a powerful lesson about sports in the nation.
This was the second time the Chiefs have visited the White House.
Well, fans from all over mid-Missouri got a chance to lay eyes on the prize in Jefferson City. The Vince Lombardi Trophy made a stop at the Missouri State Capitol on June 27th.
As you can see, fans lined up to see the hardware from the Kansas City Chiefs' 25-22 victory over the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 58 back in February. While no longer a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, fans were happy to get a look.
But, you know, there's nothing like actually going up to them and seeing them up close. I mean, at the stadium, they're behind the glass, kind of a little bit farther away.
You don't get to, like, wrap your arms around the glass.
Yeah.
The Vince Lombardi Trophy costs $50,000 to make and takes about 4 months to complete. Well, as we said earlier in the show, this year could potentially be the last time the Chiefs make their way to St. Joseph for training camp.
Yeah, that's been a big storyline for the Chiefs this year and how they could possibly move to another state.
Missouri Governor Mike Parson is trying to keep both of Kansas City's 2 major sports teams in Missouri. Earlier this month, Mike Parson met with Kansas City area officials to discuss how to keep the Chiefs from moving to Kansas.
Kansas is offering tax-based funding for a whole new stadium for the Super Bowl champions, but Parson anticipates being able to sell the Chiefs on a renovation for Arrowhead Stadium. And Governor Parson's term in office is up in 6 months. And now our chief meteorologist, Jared Shelton, will share some tips on what to do just in case you get caught in some hot weather here at training camp.
Preseason heat is a rite of passage in the game of American football, and Chiefs training camp is no exception for both players and spectators. Last year's training camp kicked off with 90-plus degree temperatures and triple-digit heat indices. Hot and muggy conditions that make it tough to stay cool, as high humidity decreases the body's ability to regulate temperature through sweat. The heat index factors in the effect of humidity on the body when temperatures are high. So, for example, a temperature of 88 degrees, average high this time of year in St. Joseph, can actually feel as hot as 106 degrees when you have relative humidity of 80%. So it really is all about how humid it is in terms of that risk. So heat indices can be a great way to determine how much you should be preparing for the heat when you head to training camp. Below average temperatures are forecast to keep extreme heat at bay for the start of this year's training camp, but staying hydrated and having access to shade is still a good idea, as early August may not be so cool. For News Press Now, I'm Storm Tracker Chief Meteorologist Jared Shelton.
And in the event that inclement weather does pop up during practice, fans should seek shelter and follow directions from local law enforcement as well as university personnel. To stay prepared and up to date on your local weather during training camp, you can download the Storm Tracker weather app by scanning the QR code on your screen.
Well, as exciting as it is for the Chiefs to return to St. Joseph, they were not always spending their summer at Missouri Western. News Press Now's Kyle Schmidt looks back at the history of training camp and how it evolved over time.
It all started on August 11th, 2002. Mark Sheehan with the News Press put out an article speaking about bringing the Chiefs to St. Joseph. At the time, the training camp was held in River Falls, Wisconsin. That same year, Charlie Shields was elected as senator for the 34th District in Missouri. In 2008, he was the majority leader in the Senate, about to become the president in the Senate. This gave a huge opportunity to allow an idea from years prior to become a reality. On the Missouri Western side of things, Dirk Clark, who at the time was the chair of the board, was in negotiations with the Chiefs to bring them to the campus alongside contributing to building the indoor sports complex. The project's cost estimate numbers were said to be off by double by an outside expert, and with no time to adjust the price,
Clark and Western had to stick with the original numbers.
So the Chiefs started to make plans to move back to River Falls because they assumed that this deal wasn't going to make it, if the cost estimates were off like that. And in the end, Jeff's cost estimates came in, the bids were right on target. So that was a big relief for everybody and kept the project alive.
During a preseason game, Shields was invited to a meeting with Clark Hunt, Carl Peterson, and others talking about Arrowhead Stadium upgrades.
The Chiefs wanted contribution tax credits from the Missouri Development Finance Board. And we got talking, and I said, I'm happy to support that effort, but part of the deal is the training camp really needs to come back to Missouri, and not just Missouri, it needs to come to St. Joseph.
The $25 million tax credit ask was a big number to pitch to the Missouri Development Finance Board, and it came to a December morning meeting in Jefferson City. The morning of the meeting, Clark and Shields were snowed in and unable to fly.
So we called the Chiefs and they said, just try to get to Kansas City. We'll figure something out when we get here.
There was a private jet coming in from Wichita, Kansas, that had a heart transplant that was going to take place in St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City.
With some quick negotiations with that pilot and his plane,
we commandeered another jet. It took off. It's got us to Jeff City for the Development Finance Board meeting.
Charlie made the pitch for the tax credits to make the deal fly, and they got approved.
The indoor sports complex was approved with $10 million contribution from the Chiefs, and the first training camp was in the foreseeable future in St. Joseph. The last piece Western added in preparation for the camp was Mike Halloran, the Associate Director Athletic Facilities and Operations, also known as the man that came with the building, described the first few years.
Year 1 through 5. It was something a little bit different almost every year.
The consistency began after the coaching changes, and Coach Reed joined the team. With just small upgrades each year, the main thing evolving with training camp are the fans.
Absolutely the biggest difference in training camp is, the people, the amount of people that come, all the fans, the notoriety our university and our community get.
Originally a 5-year contract, now on year 14, training camp has been at Missouri Western State University. It is safe to say, with all the things that had to fall into place, it is meant to be there all along. Reporting for News Press Now, I'm Kyle Schmidt.
If you're ready to celebrate our Super Bowl champions training and St. Joseph, you can do so at the Red Rally.
The rally for the Kansas City Chiefs will be held on Saturday, July 27th at Civic Center Park in downtown. The event kicks off at 1 p.m. Fans can enjoy live music, food, drinks, and inflatables for the kids. You won't want to miss it.
Coming up on News Press Now's Date with Destiny, Road to New Orleans, we'll dive into some key Chiefs departures like cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, as well as some new additions to the team. Stay with us. You're watching News Press Now's training camp special, Date with Destiny, Road to New Orleans. Welcome back. Well, let's just jump right into some key departures, and I think we have to start with cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. Now, I say that's a major loss, Jake, because he was asked to cover the opponent's top wide receiver on at least 65% of the snaps. That was a league-high 7 times during the regular season. Now, some other key departures are safety Mike Edwards, linebacker Willie Gay Jr., and guard Nick Allegretti.
Another big one is, of course, Jerick McKinnon, the running back that was with the team for the last couple of years. He's so physical, and he's, such a great pass catcher in that Andy Reid offense that they're sorely going to miss him, adding that element to the offense.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jake. That is another key departure. Well, when one door closes, another opens, and the Chiefs add some key components, including Marquise Hollywood Brown. Brown has averaged 729 receiving yards per season during his 5-year career. He can stretch the field, has true speed, and every year of his career, he's had over 20% of his target share come at over 20 yards down the field. So if they truly do want to get back to stretching the field and going deep, Patrick Mahomes has a nice new weapon. And while not initially an addition, the Chiefs were able to retain key components in linebacker Drew Tranquill and defensive tackle Chris Jones.
Well, as is the case every year for training camp, there's always going to be a player here that you probably never even heard of. And, of course, there's going to be one name in particular that I think fans are going to become very familiar with very quickly, Calvin. And that is former Welsh rugby star Louis Rees-Zammit. The NFL is a league of opportunity, of course. Even players without much football in their background can make an NFL roster. Some of the names that come to mind, like Rees-Zammit, Jordan Mailata, Antonio Gates, Brandon Aubrey, among many others. Reese Daman can be that next guy that makes a name for himself in the NFL as a player with no football experience prior to being signed by the back-to-back champs.
And let's not forget, Jake, that this year the NFL is implementing a new kickoff rule. Let's go ahead and see how that might play out. Back in March, NFL owners voted to approve the proposed modified kickoff, something league officials and coaches believe will return the play to relevance. The signature kickoff return has lost its charm, as only 22% of kickoffs in the 2023 season were returned. The modification calls for the receiving team to line 9 players up on its own 35-yard line, and 2 men will line up downfield as returners. The kickoff team defenders won't be permitted to move until the ball lands on the ground in the landing zone. So where is this landing zone? Well, that would be inside the receiving team's 20-yard line. Now, if the ball lands short of that 20-yard line, the ball will be moved to the receiving team's 40-yard line, just as if a kickoff sailed out of bounds. But if the ball sails into the end zone for a touchback, the ball is to be moved to the receiving team's 30-yard line. Now, the drawback to this format is it does eliminate the element of a surprise onside kick. So if a team wishes to attempt an onside kick in the fourth quarter, it would declare such intentions, and teams will line up in the old formation and kick off.
Well, as we were talking about new faces that you're going to see at training camp, one of the newer players that you're going to see, and a lot of fans may be familiar with, is quarterback Carson Wentz, who joins that Kansas City Chiefs quarterback room.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Jake. Let's just jump into grading the positions by group, and let's just start at the quarterback position, the most important position in any sport, I'd say. Not only do you have the greatest quarterback in the game, but you add a veteran backup, like you said, in Carson Wentz, who, while it's been a while, was third in MVP voting back in 2017, and Andy Reid is known to get the most out of his players. So if we're just looking at the quarterback room with Mahomes, I got to give it an A+.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest priorities of the Chiefs is to make sure you have a veteran quarterback behind your superstar and Patrick Mahomes. It's worked out pretty well for him in some pretty big spots. We've seen it with Chad Henne. Blaine Gabbert never really got his chance to do that. He was only there for a year, but you replace Blaine Gabbert with a good veteran like Carson Wentz. It's bound to go pretty well if things, obviously, God forbid, go a little sideways.
Well, another big storyline with the Chiefs have been their wide receivers. So let's stay on the offensive side and let's just grade that wide receiver room. I'm going to have to give it a B, and that is if Rashee Rice can play. Now, we're not sure how Xavier Worthy will adapt, especially with him missing time during mini camps with an injury. However, Hollywood Brown will stretch the field. Rashee Rice led the receiving corps as a rookie. Now, obviously, he had to step up and do it. They didn't really have another option, but he's had to mature faster than most. And you have backups that had to play this previous season that have the experience. So overall, I got to give that room, if Rashee Rice can play, a B.
Yeah, as it is right now, I think a B is a pretty fair grade right now. But, we may be talking about by season's end, it could be an A, because we know the potential of that entire wide receiver room, especially with the way they've totally remodeled it. If they can stretch the field like they used to with all that speed around him, and given Rashee Rice, as sure-handed as he is and how much of a touchdown machine he was last year, if he can return to that form, that's going to be an A by the season's end.
And the last position that I want to grade is on the defense. I do want to look at the linebacker unit, and they too get a B from me. You not only lose Willie Gay, but Nick Bolton is coming off an injury season, so we'll see just how he does. But there are positives. Leo Chanel, he became a major run stopper, and Drew Tranquill, he found his role in his first season. So overall, I got to give that linebacking group a B as well.
Yeah, Leo Chanel coming up big in the Super Bowl, forced a fumble on Christian McCaffrey there. That's not easy to do.
Not easy.
And it turns out to be pretty pivotal when you can make plays like that. I want to move up a little closer to the line of scrimmage with the defensive end and the front line of the defense as well. We know Chris Jones is fantastic, but who's going to step up and be that next great pass rusher alongside of Chris Jones? Is it going to be George Karlaftis? Is it going to be Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who's going into his second year? Someone's going to have to get some more sacks and take that load off of Chris Jones so that they can be more effective up front.
But even like you said, those two names, you're in pretty good company and pretty good hands. So as we're grading these positions, it's hard to give any of them a C, honestly, because the Chiefs are just that well-rounded.
News Press Now's Day with Destiny Road to New Orleans will be right back with some of our final thoughts and predictions as the Chiefs prepare for the upcoming season. You're watching News Press Now's training camp special, Day with Destiny Road to New Orleans.
Welcome back. Well, Jake, we just got done talking some football, but I think the real question on a lot of fans' mind is, are we going to see a Taylor Swift sighting this year?
You know, I don't want to crush fan spirits, but I'm going to say probably not. I'm going to actually go with a definitely not. We do have the VIP tent over our shoulders here, and I don't think it's going to be sporting Taylor Swift anytime soon. So it's good to think about. It's good, possibility. People coming to training camp hoping to get a glimpse of Taylor Swift, as big of a superstar as she is, but I'm going to guess probably not.
Yeah, Jake, I have to agree with you. I just don't think the security would be enough for someone like Taylor Swift here in St. Joseph. But if she does somehow come to town, it wouldn't be the first time because she did perform here back in 2007. I don't know if you knew that or not. I personally didn't until a little bit ago, but that's pretty cool stuff.
I did know that. But, if she doesn't show up, we get her boyfriend on the field. Is that not good enough for people?
I guess not anymore.
Not anymore. Well, we know there's high expectations for this Chiefs team heading into training camp one more year. Let's talk about what we think this team is going to look like and where we think they could be by the end of the year.
Well, here's my predictions for how I think the season will go, Jake, especially the regular season. The Chiefs begin the season with an absolute gauntlet. They're going through Baltimore week 1, then Cincinnati, then Atlanta, and then the Chargers. So a tough 4 weeks to start off, but I believe they split that. They start the season 2-2. I see them winning the next 5 to start the season at 7-2. Potential loss to Buffalo Bills would put them at 7-3. They'll drop one of the next 3 contests, putting them at 10-4. A visiting Texans could be sneaky, and the team closes out with 2 straight wins, heading into the playoffs at 12-5. Now, if they stay healthy through the playoffs, I couldn't imagine them failing to make it back to the AFC Championship. Can they make it 3 in a row? I don't know, but I will say this. It's extremely hard, but Patrick Mahomes has never given me a reason to doubt that they can do it.
Pretty much agree with everything you just said. I actually am very optimistic about this team and what their potential is and what they could be, especially on offense. I think they're going to return to their golden days of really stretching the field and pushing that ball down the field. I don't see any reason why they can't win 13 or 14 games in regular season. Kind of like what you said, I don't know if they can three-peat. That is really hard to do. There's a reason why it's never been done. But if any team's going to do it, it's going to be this team. So I have no reason to believe that they can't. So I would put them in the Super Bowl. Whether they win or lose, I don't know. But we know the AFC is really tough. It's a gauntlet. But it's going to prime you for when you get to those big games. And that'll do it for us. We thank you for watching News Press Now's Training Camp Special, Date with Destiny, Road to New Orleans.
Make sure you tune in to News Press Now for continuous coverage over training camp.